All right, let's talk bags. So, many different terms when it comes to bags. Bug out bags, inch bags, get home bags, and the list goes on and on. There are numerous different types of bags. People have come up with different names that try to approximate what their function would be, but it's still pretty confusing. Okay, so what I want to do today is try to break that down for you and talk about the differences between the bags, talk about how to select a bag, how to equip that bag, what goes in it, and why those things go in it. So, I'm probably going to take this video, it's probably going to be long, so I'll probably break this up into 3 parts, maybe 4. We'll just have to see how it all works out here and how much time it takes us to get through this. But, bug out bags, when someone first starts getting into preparedness, when the light bulb goes on and they go, Jesus Christ, you know what, maybe things are, a little out of control here and I need to be prepared for myself and my family and my kids and my neighbors. A bug out bag is something easy to latch onto. It's one of the first things that people usually build, one of the first things they look at, because it's easy in some ways, but it's physical, it's tangible. We can touch it. It's our security blanket, so we can, it brings us a sense of security and peace. And so a lot of people go right to a bug out bag when they first start preparing. And in my opinion, in all the study I've done and the experiences that I've had, your bug out bag is not the first thing you should be looking at. I think you need to be looking at a get home bag, and I'll explain why. But before we do that, we have to kind of lay some groundwork here. We have to talk about a few of the basics, because you're going to hear a lot of terms that I use throughout the videos on all the different subjects, and these are kind of universal when it comes to building, a system for preparedness. And systems is one of the things that I'm going to talk about. You're going to hear me use that word a lot, because everything that I do in being prepared for myself and my family and my neighbors, I'm a veteran of the fire service, and we do everything in systems, and that translates very well into the preparedness aspect of life as well, because I don't want to just do this and not have this, be able to augment or help me over here or over here. I want everything to work together. So systems is one of the things we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about that in regards to the bug out bags and all the other preparedness topics that we'll cover in the forthcoming videos. The other 2 terms are terms that I'll tell you right now, I just flat out stole them. There's another guy on YouTube by the name of Nut and Fancy. Smart man, 20-year veteran of the Air Force, very good at what he does, very, very well thought out, excellent presenter. If you're not a subscriber to his channel, do that. Go subscribe to Lieutenant Colonel Nut and Fancy on YouTube. You will learn a lot, okay? And I happen to agree with a lot of the things that he says. So he's also a big believer in systems, but there's 2 terms that he uses that I think are far more important than most people realize. Okay, before you embark on a project of putting together a bag, and a lot of people, they go, well, gee, I don't know where to start. Well, I can tell you why you don't know where to start. Because you haven't defined what that bag needs to do for you. You have to define the philosophy of use. What is this bag going to accomplish? If you just throw a bag together with a bunch of stuff, it may or may not do what you need it to do. What you've got this picture in your head that says, I want this bag to do X. Well, you have to define that. You have to define what that role is, what that philosophy of use is, no matter what piece of gear it is. Whether it be a knife, a gun, a bug out bag, food storage, water purification, medical items. You have to know what those things are going to do for you and how they fit into your system. So you have to define your philosophy of use that fits your individual situation. Your philosophy of use is going to be different than mine. I'm in a different situation than you are. I live in a different geography, different family configuration, different socioeconomic status. There's all kinds of things that go into what makes your situation unique to you. Now, there are some common underlying things that, are basics. Everybody needs water, everybody needs food, everybody needs protection. But if you live in the desert Southwest, getting water is a whole lot different than the Midwest, where I'm at, where I can't go 2 miles without stumbling into a lake or a creek or a stream or a pond or something. So my situation, what I need, is a lot different than somebody who lives in West Texas or somebody who lives in the desert Southwest. We because of our geography, we've got different needs. So we have to define the philosophy of use for us in our area of operation, where we're at, where we live, and where we're going to be. So, philosophy of use is key. It's one of the foundational concepts that we're going to have throughout all of these videos, that you cannot build a system, you cannot build a house without a foundation. You cannot build a preparedness system without a foundation either. So we have to have our foundational concepts, and philosophy of use is one of the major foundational concepts. The other one, especially in something like bags, but it also applies to our defensive weapons. It also applies to many other areas of preparedness, and that is size and weight considerations. This is something that is so important, and it may not seem like it until you throw 25 or 30 pounds on your back and you're trying to make it through rough, uneven terrain in 100-degree weather or below zero weather, and you're not dressed appropriately because you were at the office and you didn't bring the stuff with you to properly manage and cope with those elements that you have to deal with at that time. So size and weight constraints are another big thing to go into all the systems and everything that I do, because there's the old saying, and we've all heard it, ounces equal pounds and pounds equals pain. Most of us don't get up and exercise enough. Most of us don't take care of ourselves the way we should, and if we're going to expect our bodies to perform at their best when called upon, because we've just had an earthquake, we've just had a tornado, we've just had a flood, we've just had civil unrest, we've just had whatever the situation may be, you have to practice that ahead of time. You have to have yourself in shape. You have to be able to carry this weight, because if you don't, and you just strap this thing on one day and you think you're going to walk down the street to get home, and it's 10 miles and it's 100 degrees out and 80% humidity, good luck with that. It's going to be very, very difficult. So size and weight constraints are a big piece, and physical fitness is another big piece that you're going to hear me talk about a lot, because again, in a high stress situation, your body is putting out more energy. It's using what it has to heighten your mental awareness, to heighten your physical capabilities. You're working it harder without the appropriate amount of rest, because you're in a situation that is not normal. This isn't your normal schedule. This isn't your normal life. You're in a situation now where you're asking your body to do more, and if you haven't prepared your body to do that, that's going to be a big challenge, and it's going to be very hard. So, philosophy of use, size and weight constraints, and systems. Those three things we're going to talk about a lot throughout everything. So, talking about bags. That's what we're here to talk about today. Bug out bag, get home bag, inch bag. Again, all the different names basically break down into two categories. Two categories that I'll define this way, and this makes the most sense to me, and hopefully it makes sense for everybody else as well. You've got a bag that you're out in your daily life. You're doing your thing. You're at work. You're taking the kids to activities. You're doing whatever. And something happens, and you have to get home. You have to abandon your vehicle. You have to take off on foot. So, how far away from home are you? In my daily life, I'm normally within 10 to 30 miles from home. That's where I'm at. That's just kind of my circle of work, where the kids go, where my normal daily life takes me. Now, I'm in that circle probably 80% of the time. I do travel outside that circle, but again, not nearly as much. So, when I look at my philosophy of use, I want to set up a bag, 10 to 30 miles, that's a day, 2 days walk, possibly 3 if the situation, depending upon the terrain and what's happened. So I have to define the time that I'm going to need this bag to sustain me? If it's a situation that's going to go beyond that, do I have capabilities in the bag to help me replenish some of those supplies, replenish my water, replenish my food, and replenish medical supplies, whatever I may need? Okay, so that's a big part of my philosophy of use, is identifying the area. Where are you going to be at? Where are you going to need this bag to get you from point A to point B? So the two types of bags. In my daily life, I'm out running around doing my job, doing whatever. Something happens, I got to get home. Why? Because my family's at home. My supplies are at home. All my defensive tools are at home. My guns and my ammo and my knives. I have to get home. I don't want to get out. I don't want to bug out and go away. I want to get home. So, any bag that gets you from your daily life, your normal routine, that enables you to get back home to your base of operations, your house, your family, that's a get home bag. Now, the next situation that you're going to run into is you get home and the situation is so significant. It's the earthquake has hit such a wide region that it's not safe for you to stay where you're at. And you have to get out of that impact zone to a safe location. Now, that safe location could be 5 miles away. It could be 50 miles away. It could be 150 miles away. You don't know. You won't know until you gather some intelligence, get some information so you can make good decisions. So, to me, that's a bug out bag. I'm leaving my home where I've got my supplies and I have to go someplace else to safety. The big difference here, one of the biggest differences here, is typically my get home bag, 80% of the time it's just me. Okay, I'm going to work, I'm running errands, going to the store, doing those things. It's just me that this bag has to sustain. Occasionally I have one of the kids with me or the wife. We try to plan for that as best we can, but you can't do everything. You do the best that you can with what you got. Whereas in a bug out situation, if I'm leaving for an indeterminate amount of time, traveling an undetermined distance, I don't know where I'm going, don't know how far I'm going. I don't know if this is going to be a 3-day trip or a 15-day trip. Depends upon the terrain, depends upon what I'm dealing with to get from point A to point B. So, in a bug out situation, I've got undetermined distance, undetermined amount of time, and instead of just me, now, hopefully if everything has gone right and the plans have worked, I've got my wife and my children. So now there's 6 of us. And instead of me, an adult male, I now have to deal with everyone from a 4-year-old to a 16-year-old, plus the 2 adults. So what I need to be able to bring to that situation is totally different. It's a totally different set of capabilities, skills, and equipment. Some of it will overlap, but I've got to think more long-term on the bug out side than what I do on the get home bag. So to me, getting home is always my first priority. That's why I've always felt building yourself a get home bag is where you start. So let's dive into the bag.